Okay, so that's our first half of our program. Now, I suppose we've been able to at least enlighten you a little bit on what is it that we hope to achieve, what's our mission and our vision, and what's the objective. Uh, Basically, do we have an end game, and do we have a game plan into meeting that end game? That's the long and short of it. And in the event you still need to know more and you still want to ask some questions, that's why we're giving this second half or the next 1 hour to take your questions. And I've told our camera unit, and I've given him instructions not to take any shots of the audience or the participants. But if you want to be on YouTube, just turn around and wave, and he'll do a close up and even freeze it for 2-3 seconds so that you can say, hey, I'm on YouTube, you know. But I leave it to you. If you wish to remain anonymous, then just address us, and they'll take a shot of the back of your head, you know. And if you want everyone at home to see you, just wave, and we'll give you that close-up that you want. So, yeah, can we start with the questions? Anything, yeah? Anything at all you want to ask tonight? There you are. First question.
I like to remain anonymous, but I've lived in Bangkok for the past 2 years. I've been living here for 7 years. Okay. Question I have is about the reform to election commission. I mean, a lot of work that you have done and the opposition have done to awaken the rakyat. What happens is, like we saw in Sarawak, a lot of things went wrong with the election commission. We believe the election, or I believe the election commission is not doing an effective job in maintaining neutrality towards both parties.
If you don't mind, Sam, I'll just take this one. You can add in after. Okay, that's nice. I like your question. It's short. Sometimes I get people giving us a lecture for 5 minutes what we should be doing. I even have one guy who stood up in when was it? Was it in in Melbourne? I think it was. You know, stood up and says, you know, if we support MCLM, what do we get out of it? What's in it for us, and things like that. And then I gave him that very famous, I think it was President Kennedy's, President Kennedy's line, don't ask what we can do for you, but what you can do for your country. The fact that you're a Malay, being educated here, speaking with broken English on top of that, which means you're not really qualified to go overseas. There's a lot already your country has done for you. Now let's talk about what you can do for your country. And that sort of cut off his so-called question, because it was not so much a question as it was a statement. So yes, now I just want to say one thing about your question though, because there's going to be probably a lot more questions along these lines after this. What you have described is actually a symptom of a problem. Now, if you ask me, just like you go to a doctor and you said, look, I'm sweating, I'm shivering, I feel cold, I feel hot, I got these little lumps and rashes coming out. What can you, doctor, do to remove the symptoms of this disease? The doctor says, I'm not in the business of removing symptoms of the disease. I'm in the business of removing the cure. The cause of the disease. I give you the cure. So, if you want to come and see me, the doctor, and you ask the doctor for medicine to remove the symptoms of the disease, he'll say, I'm not that kind of doctor. Maybe you should go to another doctor. What I need to do is to find out what's causing your disease and cure it. And when I cure your disease, all these symptoms automatically go away. I don't have to cure the symptoms. I go attack the cause, and when the cause has been cured, the symptoms go away. Now you talk about things like the gerrymandering, the unlevel playing field, and the non or lack of neutrality by the Election Commission, SPR, etc., etc., etc. These are problems we've been trying to solve for a long, long time. And we've had meeting after meeting with the chairman and the various board members of SPR, but we couldn't get very far. In fact, even within, at the beginning of the meeting itself, we could see that it's futile. It was a hopeless effort. The only way we're going to be able to solve all these things that you spoke about, as an example, the recent Sarawak state elections. The only way we can do that is to first of all do like what Sam said, gain federal power. And when we've gained federal power, whoever gains federal power can then introduce the reforms in parliament. Now, do you know that some countries, it is law that 30% of the candidates must be women. Now, when 53% of the voters are women, I don't see why we can't have 30% of the candidates women. And why isn't there a law like some countries, where it is mandatory by law? What about the gerrymandering? In some countries, by law, the variance between seats must not be more than 15% or 20%. Now, if we have variance of, say, 20%, plus minus, which means if we take the benchmark of a seat as 50,000 voters, which means it should be within 40, which is minus 20, to 60, which is plus 20. So between 40 to 60,000 voters per seat. Yeah? Now what would you have in Malaysia? We have one seat which is mere 5,000 and another seat which is as high as 120,000. What kind of variance are we talking about? Now why are the variances that large? Because all those seats which only have 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 or 20,000 voters, they're all seats which the government can win. All those seats which is above 100, 110, 120 are all seats which the opposition can win. So what do? They take all the opposition seats or all those voters in the opposition areas and they lump all these people into one seat. And those seats where the government can win, they cut it up. So which means, bottom line, you can win 100,000 votes. I will also win 100,000 votes. Your 100,000 votes only entitles you to one seat. My 100,000 votes gives me 3 seats. So that's why even Barisan wins only what? 66% of the votes or 65% of the votes, they get 90% of the seats. When they win 50% of the votes, they can still win 60% of the seats. When they win 40% of the votes, they can still win 51% of the seats, which means it does not matter how many votes they win, how many votes you win, they are going to form the government, because how many votes you win is not going to determine who forms the government, it's how many seats which I am going to win, which gets to form the government. That's gerrymandering. How do we address this? By screaming, by talking, by complaining, by sending memorandums? No, by act of parliament. By act of parliament, this is illegal, and the legal thing is as follows. But you're never going to get an act of parliament until you control parliament. It's the chicken and the egg. So here, unfortunately, you have to change the government first before you can change the system. And this is what we're talking about. We are saying with the need to change the government. You are giving examples of how the system is corrupt. But that is a result of this. And we can't do anything about that until we first solve this. And so for those others, this is for the benefit of the others also. How do we solve corruption? How do we eliminate racism? How do we eliminate race and religious politics, etc., etc., etc. Those are all the end results or the symptoms of a problem we are facing in the country. And that's what we're here today, to see how we can bring about change through people's power. Okay, thank you.
I was with a group of friends on Sunday last week, and they asked this question: how how will we bring about change? Will we see change? And my answer was this: change will come. But it will come either through the ballot box or in time, what we've seen in Egypt. It will come. The question now is, do we do it peacefully through the ballot box? Or do we wait till there are so many marginalized that they decide to take things into their own hands? Now, my father's generation let this nation down. They looked the other way as things were happening. Ops Lalang, don't get involved. Saleh Abbas got sacked, don't get involved. My generation did the same thing. We looked the other side. Why? Because we had enough money in our pockets, and Mahathir gave us enough consumer outlets. All right, you had places to spend your extra money. So it didn't matter that there were people who were being displaced in the estates to make way for the new apartments, condos that the new middle class were occupying. Didn't matter that Indian rubber tappers were being displaced. No rehabilitation program was being afforded them to learn new skills. We looked the other way. The middle class looked the other way. Now, Pat mentioned just now, failed state. You go check Wikipedia. International criteria, 12 criteria. We are already displaying 5.5. We are on the way there. We are halfway there. All right? Now, what happens if that hits our shores? Middle class are going to start to feel the pinch. And there are going to be enough people to say, we need to kick these buggers out. Now, you want to avoid that? This is what I told those people as we had dinner. Get your relatives, get your friends to start to register. Call everyone. Make 10 calls every day to ask, have you registered to vote? Because if we don't wake up to the need to address the plight of the marginalized, that group will grow big enough to come and forever change your way of life. You mentioned election commission. My friend, it is symptomatic of the hijacking of the institutions that were meant to protect the riot. The judiciary has gone down the toilet bowl. The police do not protect the riot. 1,805 deaths in custody. I'm not just blaming the police. MACC, Parliament. In 2007, when they wanted to extend Rashid's tenure, the election chairman, so many of us wrote to our parliamentarians. I went to see my MP together with a group, PJ Selatan, Donald Lim. We told him, we are ordering you to vote the bill down. You know what he did? He scratched like that and said, not everything can do lah. This is my representative. All right, so as Pat said, it's up to us, it's down to us. It's down to us.